All right, well, I finally made time, Super Bowl Sunday of all nights, to watch The Greatest Night in Pop on Netflix. Now, simply put, this is a 2024 documentary of We Are the World. And back in 1985, I believe there was a TV documentary called The Story Behind the Song. The story behind the song for We Are the World. I remember way back when, like in the early 2010s, I purchased a VHS of this on eBay, and then I purchased a DVD because I forgot at the time I didn't have a VCR anymore. But um, I watched the DVD and I loved it. Now I was born in '91, so I was, of course, brought into existence after this song was a hit. After this documentary was made. I'm talking about the 1985 one. And so I watched the documentary a few times and I really enjoyed it, just seeing that there were so many stars who came together on short notice for something even bigger than they were in terms of the industry. It's like, hey, we're big in the, industry of music. We're, celebrities around the world. We got tours and records and whatnot, but this cause is greater than all of us. So let's put our egos at the door, come in here and do this song and change lives across the globe. And it certainly did. Now, Thriller 40, I did a video about how Thriller 40 was a disappointment, in terms of the legacy of the greatest selling album of all time. And, um, it just didn't do it. It just didn't do it. And if I remember correctly, it wasn't on Paramount Plus. Yeah. So Thriller 40 came out. I was just so disappointed. Then we have the announcement for The Greatest Night in Pop. Honestly, I wasn't that excited. I'm like, man, first of all, I saw the original documentary. I still have it on DVD. And Thriller 40 was a dud. So I'm like, watching the making of Thriller, which I have that DVD as well. That documentary, or, the making of, was a better Thriller tribute than Thriller 40 was. So I'm like, I don't know. This documentary probably won't tell me anything I didn't already know. But I watched it and I enjoyed it. And first of all, it wasn't made by the same people who made Thriller 40. That was a plus. Lionel Richie was basically like the main narrator of this documentary, and he does a great job of it. And it's like this man does not age. He looks the same as he did in like maybe the 90s or early 2000s. It's crazy. We had some other faces like Sheila E., Bruce Springsteen, Dionne Warwick, Cyndi Lauper. It was great. We saw some great stars from back in the day during that night. It was so cool because the 1985 documentary about this song was excellent. But I think the difference for this particular documentary was that we got more one-on-one interviews from the people who were there in that room. Like, what was it, 40, pretty much like 40 years ago. So to hear their perspectives of what went down that night, where they were in their careers when they got the call, because what really puts this documentary into perspective is how different communication is nowadays compared to the 80s. There were no cell phones, social media. These people had to call folks on the phone. They had Rolodexes full of different contacts. And, I think the funniest thing was that originally Stevie Wonder was supposed to be contacted to be part of the writing team for the song. But for 3 weeks, they had no luck reaching Stevie. So Michael and Lionel had to put it together. So I love hearing Lionel's perspective of it. Like, I knew of Michael Jackson. He knew of me, but this was like our first time working together on something. And he's like, look, I know you can write a great song. I know I can write a great song, but we need to do this together. So they put their skills together. Like, Michael doesn't, write music or anything. He pretty much, has melodies. And then Lionel, it's like they have clashing ways of creating music, but they blend it so well together. I think that's what makes the story so great. Opposites attract. And it's like, it's not that either of their writing styles are right or wrong. It's the fact that they were able to take their respective talents, come together and create the skeleton of the song, before all the stars united. And then the big thing was the ticking clock of, hey, the night of the AMAs, we got to get everybody together because it's the only time all these people will be in the same area, because some of them were in, the midst of tours. Some of them were just finishing up tours, but the AMAs was a chance for them to take a breath, celebrate their accomplishments. But then right after the award show, they would have to go right to the studio. Now, Michael, he didn't go to the AMAs. He was at the studio. I believe Quincy was at the studio. Lionel Richie, he was the host of the AMAs. So it's like whenever he got off stage, he had to get on the phone to make sure everything was cool, get ready for the night. He won a bunch of awards that year. I forgot he did that. I mean, because I didn't forget Lionel was a big star, but it's like, wow, I forgot how big he was at that particular point in time. But yeah, as the event came together, I love how they were trying to keep this a secret from as many people as possible, because they didn't want to run the risk of certain artists, despite being, global sensations. A lot of these artists were really timid and, as one could describe, introverted. And it makes a lot of sense. I know I'm an introvert myself, and I've been public speaking since I was a kid. I still get nervous a little bit if I have to public speak, but it's mainly from excitement rather than screwing up. But when I get off of that stage or, away from the podium, so I'm no longer in front of that crowd of people, I just revert back into my introverted self. And a lot of those individuals, they were not going to be fond of, coming from the AMAs and like a swarm of people around. So I just think about how they kept this as quiet and low key as they could without it breaking out into a media frenzy. Because look at today's time. Mainly it's when a Marvel film or something is being, being done, it's in the production stage, or it's on site getting some filming, and the last thing any of these directors and whatnot want, or, these studios want, is for random people just to have a snapshot of, hey, that's so-and-so in their costume. Oh, this person's going to be back for the sequel. And then it just starts trending online. So I think it is safe to say that it's probably next to impossible to have the level of discreetness today as they did back then, trying to get We Are the World together. But, once they all came through the door saying, leave your ego at the door. And I believe that Quincy Jones or Lionel Richie said that even though we had to sign up, it was no problem. I mean, everybody came in there and there was a huge sense of camaraderie, because there were no agents or security in terms of any individual artist. It's like once they crossed the threshold, it was just the artist, and it was Quincy. And I just really love that. And I guess the best way to describe it is this. You could say wow, when I was watching the special, I had this perfect analogy of a bowl, some pancake batter, and then the spoon used to mix it all up. And I would say, you know what? No. I think Lionel Richie was like the bowl. All of the other artists, Michael, Diana Ross, Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, Bruce Springsteen, Kenny Rogers, Tina Turner, all those artists that were in that room were like the batter inside of the bowl. And then Lionel Richie, he was the one on the floor making sure everything got mixed up together well, because I just loved how Lionel described it, where basically we had 60 something artists in the room, and we're working on one song, and we had to make sure everybody was on the same page, because somebody might not be able to sing this high. So it's like, hey, for the artists who can't really hit a certain register, sing it the way you would sing it a bit lower, though, because we're really trying to get everybody in unison, where even though not everyone has a solo, we want to make sure at least the chorus sounds great when everybody sings together. And, it's just like a classroom, I guess you could say that Quincy Jones is like the teacher and Lionel Richie is kind of like the teacher's assistant, where the teacher is at the front of the class, but the assistant kind of goes around the classroom to make sure everybody is, on the same page, everybody's okay. Because like you said, he kept going around trying to put out as many fires as he could, because, there were a bunch of different groups. Like maybe there were 2 artists over here talking, or 4 over here talking about a certain line. And like they said, everybody had nothing but good things to say about Lionel Richie in terms of the way he was able to keep the energy up in the room. And remember, this guy had just hosted the AMAs, and he performed, I believe, twice that night. Then the stress of getting everything together. Of course, it was stressful, but, I just love those moments where it felt like, people were being frustrated. We're getting frustrated, and understandably so, because, like I said earlier in the video, a lot of these people were either getting ready for a tour, just got off a tour, just came from out of the country. They were out of the country. I think Dionne Warwick was out of the country, but she was asked, and she knew this was something important, so she flew in. And it was like right after the AMAs, and this was going into the wee hours of the morning. So a lot of people were getting frustrated. I think the moment that led to the most frustration was when they were getting the song together, and out of nowhere, Stevie Wonder, if I remember correctly, suggested some Swahili in the song. And, it's just like that one kid in class where everybody seems to be understanding it, but then they just ask this random question that throws out that just basically messes up the momentum, because it felt like, even some people who weren't really confident in their own abilities to sing along with, certain other artists because of their vocal, talents, it felt like, okay, yeah, we're getting this going. But then that's when Stevie came in with the Swahili suggestion, and that just threw everything off, because some people were like, oh yeah, we're just kind of frustrated. We're ready for like this part to be over. Because I know one particular artist, I forgot his name. He was a white artist who I believe was like more of the country genre. As soon as, people like Michael and Quincy were trying to, okay, Stevie Swahili, he was out. He's like, no, you know what? I'm out. That's Swahili. I can't do all that. It's like, I came here to sing this song, and we just getting it together. Now we're talking about some Swahili. Nope. So that one artist just bounced. I was laughing out loud. That was hilarious. But, it's funny because I believe in the 1985 documentary, I think Harry Belafonte or somebody said, actually, that's not even the right language for the particular nation that we're doing this song for. So that's why it was scrapped, because Michael tried to add in, some of Stevie's suggestions like, well, Stevie, let's try to make something a little more, I guess you could say, easier for everybody to follow. But no, it's like, again, imagine you're in a math class and you're learning basic algebra, but then one student who's a bit more knowledgeable than everyone else is like, hey, how about we try to do this the way you could with geometry. And it's like, man, come on, man. We just caught on to the basic algebra. We don't need to be throwing no geometry in this. Or basically, like, everybody is in Spanish class and they're learning a song, but then somebody wants to insert French into it. That's a better example. But Sheila E., it was cool to see her in the interview, because I forgot she was in there. Because I'm so used to Sheila E. and Prince being linked up hip to hip, so not seeing Prince by her side threw me off. Not in the actual interview, but I mean like the footage from the night of the We Are the World recording session. But basically, she talked about how, she performed at the AMAs, and then Lionel pretty much, said, we want you to come. And really, and I felt kind of bad for Sheila, because as the night went on, it kind of became less about, oh, these people really don't want me here. I'm kind of like a placeholder, because Prince, they wanted Prince, but Prince, was shy. He doesn't like crowds. And, he wanted to do some guitar. He's like, hey, I'll do some guitar in another room. And he's like, no, man, it's like, it's all about unity, where everybody's in the same room. We're singing this song together. But they felt like the longer Sheila was there, because, Prince loved him, Sheila E. So the longer Sheila was there, they're like, well, maybe Prince will eventually come. But and then after learning that she wasn't getting a solo, and, she had been there most of the night, she just said, bye, and she bounced. So she was still part of the song and whatnot. But as time went on, she kind of understood. It's like, oh, I get it. You invited me in the hopes that this person was actually coming. So it is what it is. But Bruce Springsteen, I just admire his vocals even more, because he had just got off of his tour, Born in the USA. And, his people were like, yeah, Bruce, he doesn't fly the night of a concert. Like, once a concert or tour is over, he'll rest up, then he'll get on a flight the next day. But in this case, since it was a good cause, he did come out to the song recording. But the thing was, this man had just gotten off tour. He had just finished tour. And we're talking 4:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And he's singing his part. And it sounded, and how did they describe it? Like there was glass in his throat, because again, he had just gotten off tour. So it sounded a bit rough. But to me, I never knew that part. I never knew about him just getting off tour. I never knew about his voice not being at its strongest like it usually is. But to me, I think that raspiness is what made his solo, to me, one of my favorite parts of the song. Not only that, when you listen to the recording during the documentary, some of the parts sound a bit, shaky or rough, but gotta give props to Quincy and his team because they were able to clean stuff up. So when the final product was made, everybody seemed flawless. And I forgot which artist said it, but a couple of them were nervous. Like, man, I got to sing right after Michael, or I got to sing, next to Diana Ross. So I'm really nervous. But I was worried, like, I thought I messed up. But then when I listened to the actual song, I'm like, oh, thank goodness they did their thing cleaning it up. So I really do feel like if you watch this documentary and then listen to the song, or just look at the music video, I think that's it. You could either, do both. Like, look at the video, because after watching the documentary, you see how they Frankenstein bits of the artists doing their solo parts, the artists in the big group singing as a chorus. It really felt like, wow, this is great. They really made like a song, a music video, and a documentary in one night. So I think that's pretty cool. And just really, really looking at the fact that there can never be anything like that again, because it's like when they did the We Are the World for Haiti. I forgot, another YouTuber did commentary on it. It's like, it felt very rushed. And it's not to, talk bad about the team that came together to make this happen, because, they did it for a good cause. But when you listen to the song, it really felt like a lot of the artists were trying to do imitations of the original artists from We Are the World, as opposed to doing their own thing. But, with so many egos and, beefs between rappers, or, beefs between different artists across the board, there really isn't any sort of, opportunity for anything like this to happen, because everybody is more concerned about the clout as opposed to the gathering of stars. Because remember back in the day, like during different tributes for, legends in the industry, you would see a huge group of people get together and just dedicate their performance to a particular artist, like a Luther Vandross, or, I don't know, in the, so many artists. But we don't really see that anymore. What is it? Black Men United, You Will Know. Huge gathering of black male artists. Doubt we'll ever see anything about like that again, because nowadays there really aren't a lot of groups, because most everybody are individuals, due to, companies realizing like, man, it'll be a lot cheaper to, market it one person as opposed to like 3 to 5 people, who sing like a NSYNC or Backstreet Boys. We'll just focus on a Justin Timberlake or something like that. But yeah, it was just really sad. Well, for one, I don't, if I remember correctly, I think due to like health issues and whatnot, Quincy Jones doesn't really do interviews anymore. It would have been cool to see him, in this documentary. I do know that in the Quincy documentary from a few years ago, he did talk about We Are the World along with his other, massive projects in his career. But, it was sad towards the end where Lionel talked about how, what, because his dad told him something to the effect of, you always be able to come back home, but the home's going to be there, but the people who were in the home aren't. And he talked about how, Michael Jackson was over there, and, like Tina Turner was over there. And he mentioned other people who are still alive, but it really hit home when he was talking about how he's sitting in this studio where We Are the World happened. And some of the people that were standing right in this room, they were standing in the back. They were standing on the steps there. They were sitting behind this desk. They aren't here anymore. And then you have all these people who are still alive, but, they're not together. And it makes sense because it was a struggle to get everybody together on that one night, and it was highly unlikely they would ever get together again. I think at the 1985 AMAs, when We Are the World, or was it the Grammys? I forgot what award show, but I know when We Are the World took home a couple of awards, Diana asked for all the artists that were there on that night to come on stage. So that was probably like the closest to recreating that moment as they could. But I did read a report that after this documentary, We Are the World got back on the charts. But yeah, it was a beautiful moment, and not just the greatest night in pop for a reason, but it was just a beautiful moment in general where you have these people who are larger than life coming together for a good cause to make a difference. So I encourage you, if you have not seen The Greatest Night in Pop, go watch it on Netflix. I'm not going to rewatch it anytime soon because I'm still fresh off the heels of it, but it's something I definitely see myself putting on in the near future, just to kind of just recapture the the essence of the 80s, an era I wasn't even alive for, but it just truly felt like a good time. So yeah, this was a great documentary. I would give it probably like an 8 out of 10. Only an 8 out of 10 because most of the stuff in there I already knew, but the gems and the perspective from people that I hadn't heard speak on the night of We Are the World, it made me appreciate it that much more. So with that being said, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.